Hello everyone, I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Boom Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm so grateful that you're listening, subscribing and commenting. I really appreciate the support. And in this video, I wanted to speak to you about levels of consciousness or awakening, whatever term you want to use for it. And how, every single person, every single being on this planet is at a certain level of consciousness right now, at a certain grade, if you want to call it. The grades don't really matter, of course, the number doesn't matter, but everyone is at a certain level of consciousness. And just because you are at a certain level of consciousness doesn't mean you're better or worse than someone else, of course. It's just the path that you're on. It's just the grade you're in, right? You're not going to say that a grade 5er is a person in grade 5 is better than the person in grade 4. It's just the grade they're in. It's just the level of progression. It has nothing to do with better or worse. They're just a bit older, obviously, a little bit more experienced, a little bit more awakened, and more conscious, right? And so the grades themselves don't matter. It's just where you are, right? There's no comparison there. And in the same manner as, how a grade 5 person would never look down upon a grade 3 person and say, oh my God, you're really dumb, aren't you? How can you still be in grade 3? I'm in grade 5 already. Can you imagine? I'm so cool and you're not, kind of thing, right? Maybe kids do that, but if you get the general gist of it, that's not how things work, right? That's not how things should work, because a person who's in university is not better than someone who's in college, and they're not better than someone who's in high school. They're just at different levels of progression. Right? The same thing applies to consciousness as well. You being a little bit more awakened than someone else, you're not better than them. You're just at a different level than them, right? And that's one of the things that I've been noticing a lot, not only in myself, but in the people around me and in people are online, is that we kind of have a tendency to judge people who are not at the same level as us. And of course, as I think of it now, I'm like, it's so ridiculous, because it's like, as I said, an adult kind of laughing at a toddler, being like, oh my God, look at you. Or an adult laughing at a teenager, being like, oh, look at how cool I am, how much money I have, and how much I've progressed. And look at you, you're still just dealing with the basics. How foolish are you? It doesn't make any sense, right? Because again, it's just a level of progression. It's just about age and experience or time. It has nothing to do with anything else. But we still end up judging other people for that. I notice this a lot in certain communities, because what happens is that you need to be at a certain level of consciousness in order to realize the importance of certain things. So I'm going to use veganism as an example, not because I despise veganism or I hate vegans or anything like that. I don't want to start a debate over that. I love all of the stuff that vegans do and all of the awareness that they're trying to build in the world. It's extremely important. But I do notice that a lot of people will turn to veganism at a certain point in their life, whatever that point might be. They might be 30, they might be 20, they might be 60, they might be 80. Whatever that point is, at a certain point in their life, they suddenly have that light bulb go off in their head and they realize, right, I shouldn't be eating animals because it's wrong or it's cruel, and I'm going to turn vegan. And as soon as they do that, they start becoming the advocate of veganism, of course. But they do it sometimes they do it in a way that they are like, well, I am vegan, so I'm better than you because you're not vegan. And it always makes me, because I don't like that, because it's wrong. Because what happened is that you suddenly progress from one level of consciousness to another, and you realize, okay, veganism is the way. But the other people are still back there. They're still learning, they're still growing, they're still understanding, they're still progressing, right? So you saying to them, oh, you know what, I'm better than you because I do this and you don't, doesn't mean anything, because we're all at different levels of progression. For the longest time, you were eating meat as well. It might be that you were born vegan, which is awesome, that's great. But a lot of people I know, they were eating meat for the longest time. They were eating meat until they were 30, 40, 50, and all of a sudden they realized the light bulb went off and said, oh, right, I shouldn't be eating meat anymore. I'm going to become vegan. And they switched over from one point to another, right? And so all of those years that you did eat meat, all of those years that you were still, killing animals to feed yourself, all of those years that you were still doing that, you didn't judge anyone else for being vegan or not being vegan, obviously, right? Because your level of consciousness was completely different. all of a sudden now you've progressed, you've kind of taken a step further, or kind of gone up the ladder a bit more, right? You made that progression, but now all of a sudden you're judging people for not being at the same level as you, right? It kind of is a little bit, in my head, a little bit ridiculous and a little bit hypocritical, because what about all those years that you weren't at the same level of consciousness, right? So again, I always think of it as, okay, I know certain things and I do certain things because I know certain things, right? I'm at a certain level of consciousness, whatever that level might be, it's my level, and I'm doing certain things because of that level of consciousness. So I meditate and yoga because of it, or I don't eat meat because of it, or whatever it might be, and that's my level. I got to this level because of all the experiences I had and all the things I went through. Now everyone else is kind of going through the same kind of scenario. They're going through certain scenarios, they're going through certain experiences, they're progressing in their levels of consciousness and levels of awakening little by little by little, and eventually, perhaps eventually, that we're all going to be at the same level, right? Eventually, perhaps we're all going to be at that peak. Maybe that's the end goal, right? Spiritual awakening for all. But we're not there yet, right? We're not there yet, which means that we're all at different levels. And me being at a certain level, laughing down upon the people who are maybe at a different level than me, it seems not at all the path of a conscious, awakened being, right? Like, how does that make any sense? Now, the point is that just because it makes absolute sense to you, just because it makes absolute sense to you that we should be vegan, does not mean that it makes absolute sense to everyone else. They're not there yet. They will get there maybe, or they might never get there in this lifetime. That's not the point. Just because you got there doesn't mean that now you start advocating it to everyone else and saying, if you don't do it, you're a terrible person and you should go and die and suffer and all that stuff. No, that's not how it works, yeah? The same thing with Christianity. I notice a lot of people do that with Christianity as well. As soon as they become like born again Christians, or all of a sudden they get into Jesus Christ, like they all of a sudden it's like, well, this is the only path. And if you don't realize that, then you're an idiot. Well, no, you're just at a level of consciousness where you have a connection to God in a certain form, and that's all. That's it. Just one path for one person. There's billions of paths up the mountain to the peak, and everyone is taking their own path, and everyone's going at their own pace, and everyone's progressing at their own level and their speed. It has nothing to do with you, and there is no right way, or we shouldn't at least be judging anyone else for being on a path that's different from ours, or that's progressing in a manner that's slower than ours. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense if you do that, because as I said, it's like, you looking down upon a person who is in grade 5 and you're like a high schooler, and you're like, wow, what are you doing? You should be moving a little bit faster. How slow are you? No, it doesn't make any sense. As I said, there are different levels, and every person is just doing their own thing at the best, at their own best level that they can, right? So I really wish that, I'm not saying that I don't do this. Sometimes I judge people as well, and I'm like, what am I doing? How can I judge anyone when I've just progressed to this level myself, right? And so if you've just, if you're just a born again Christian, or if you've just realized that veganism is the answer, then great, good for you, awesome. Share that knowledge with others, but don't do it in a denigrating fashion, or a fashion where you're like, well, judging them because if they don't do it, then they're idiots. You were an idiot for the longest time as well. You didn't have the answer either. And so what, right? Just because now you know it doesn't mean anything. Everyone has to progress through the steps one by one, on their own path, in their own way, in their own time. Yeah. I hope this makes sense. I hope I was able to explain myself to you. Again, I don't want to start a tirade or a debate over how veganism is the answer, or Christianity is the answer, or not the answer. That's not the point of this video. If you have something to say about that, don't, because I'm gonna delete the comment. But the point is about levels of consciousness, and to realize that judging other people who are at different levels is really not the answer here. Sharing your, obviously, epiphany and your journey is not bad. It's actually a good idea. But to put other people down because they're not in the same spot as you is the wrong idea, right? That's the wrong way of doing things. If you have questions about this, please let me know. I am happy to answer any questions. Comment below, and hopefully it'll make sense to me, and I'll do a video on it if possible. Again, if you have something to share, please do share your thoughts and ideas with me. I'd love to hear. and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.